Right, how are we doing everybody? Welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Again, today we are talking about the downswing, and I'm talking about something that you need to be slightly cautious of. A lot of golfers very much emphasize the concept of playing and very much therefore become very transfixed on how the club face looks. Not suggesting that these things aren't true, but maybe they're only in perspective based on your rotation. Because like I've been talking about recently, like the Iron Byron that they designed for club fitting and all the rest of it, there are, in its simplest form, two components. There is this double pendulum, which is, if you like, in golfing terms, wrist cock to down cock, and you have an axis of rotation in terms of its spine. And what I'm trying to suggest is that if the axis of rotation is indifferent, then so will the double pendulum. Now, my point is that I get a lot of questions about how the club face should look in the golf swing, and I talk about it, and again, this is what we're going to be talking about. A lot of amateur golfers, and maybe this is more applicable to your better type of amateur golfer, tend to feel like they get the club face too open in transition, and then you excessively have to use your hands, which kind of promotes this drawing sort of shot. And then therefore you look at people like Brooks Koepka, DJ, John Rahm. There are many professionals that create a degree of flexion coming in towards the downswing, and then you kind of feel like, well, yeah, if I can get my club face looking this way, then it will completely change my need to look as rolly. It's not necessarily always the case, right? Because one of the things that happens is the kind of early hip extension. And if you're unaware as to what I mean, if you draw a line on the back of your hips, what you'll see in transition is if your pelvis goes forward. Now, if my pelvis goes forward like this, you can see the way the club face, if I come down a little bit more, would start to look like so. And obviously if I was more in posture, you can see the way the club face will completely change its perspective. So today's video is a very simple one. It's like, although I'm dramatizing these, even if I kind of move around to a few degrees, obviously the more I am vertically placed changes the degree of, if you like, rotation around the upper part of my arm, which therefore means that depending where my upper arm is orientated would have a massive impact on how the club face would look. So I personally, I've talked about flexion on previous videos, and again, it's something as ever I'll always come back to and try and simplify as a video. But I wouldn't get too hung up on the idea of creating flexion, in my opinion, because I don't think it's the definitive answer to straight shots as sometimes we perceive. But your rotation around your spine is basically your ability to swing on plane, but it also changes aesthetically how things look, especially from the perspective where we're normally looking at it. So my point is that if you came down with an early hip extension, yes, the club face is going to look this way, but one of the reasons why you're going to have to excessively move this way is because the pelvis is moving in this direction. If your pelvis triggers a better rotation so you stay in posture, well then all of a sudden, obviously, of course, you're going to feel like you're not fighting this this high rate of closure with the club face, mainly due to the orientation of the transition, so this way instead of this way. So there are plenty of content on my channel about hip rotation, and for those that are obviously very familiar with the channel, you know, if you're somebody who kind of feels that way, that your club face and you're struggling with the release, then again, I would look a little bit closer in terms of how you're moving personally. If you're uncertain, then watch some of the other content. Watch one of the playlists on hips, because it's something that I talk about in a huge amount of detail, because I'm absolutely adamant it can transform your golf game. Hopefully you understand the video. Always appreciate one of those. I suppose what I'm trying to suggest is that maybe you only want to start looking at the club face relationship based upon the fact that you know that you're rotating. I don't want to say optimally, but at least without fault, I suppose. Always appreciate one of those. Remember, it's absolutely free to press that subscribe button. If you're going to do so, you might as well press the little bell icon, because it means you'll receive notifications every time a new video comes out. Get your video camera out, draw a line on the backside. If you're drifting forward, that would be your problem, not necessarily the club face. I'll catch you with you guys again soon.